Hi, this is Adrian with Powercode, and in this training module we're going to cover how to create a customer account and then schedule that account to the Schedule Live view. For those brand new with Powercode, you'll see at the top here we have our meta search bar where you can search for anything in the system, name, phone number, but even down to specifics of a trouble ticket. So for instance, you remember you talked to a customer about Hulu, you could search for Hulu here, or anything else throughout the system you might need. There's also an option to hand key in a customer account ID or a ticket ID. And then right here we can see the last 10 customers that this account touched, as well as the last 10 pieces of equipment and the last 10 tickets, as well as keep it on light or dark mode if you're working at night and don't want that eye strain. From here though, we're going to go down to our global navigation bar, which shows a lot of our different modules and top level places you can navigate within the software. And we're going to go to accounts and add. From there, you can type in your basic account information. This customer type is going to determine whether or not it gives you an additional field for a company name, which we're going to use in this case. We're going to call this our Good Barbecue. We're going to say it's John Smith because we're super creative. Make sure you put an email in there. As you'll notice, when I hit tab here, it's saying that this is an improper email address. So some of these fields are set to look for email addresses or phone numbers. It's also important, even if I put in a @gmail.com, I bet this guy gets a lot of random mail. If I go here to complete setup, it'll also show me any areas that we mandate be filled in from within the software. When building out this account services page, whoever goes in and configures this for you, you'll determine whether or not you require these fields to move on. And again, you can toggle them on and off. In this case, it's looking for a phone number. And then we're also going to say if we want them to be referred by someone. You can either type in a number here or you can go search for the customer. This is really handy for later on in the software, as we actually offer different services that give discounts, both reoccurring or one-time, based on one or multiple referrals. So right here at the beginning when you're collecting that account is a great time to grab that and maybe even tell them about your referral program if you choose to have one. If you want to have anything else in here, like the company association, if you use different account types or groups, that would all be set up within this part as well. We also have a number of custom fields within Powercode. You'll see in this particular demo, we have account type, antenna MAC, Antigua radio number, and the contract date. These are all customizable to your specific needs. So we can actually go right up in here into our items portion, go to our custom items, and then over to data fields. And we'll take a look at what that looks like right here on that tab. So you can choose to add a custom field and then where you want to put it actually. So those ones we were looking at right there were displayed on the contact page. You can also put on the account page, on the equipment itself, or the inventory. You can choose the name, what type of input you're looking for, whether or not you want that on or off basically, which accounts to apply it to, and then whether or not it needs to be a completely unique value within the system. That would be good for if you're looking for a MAC or maybe a serial number for specific types of equipment. Once it's there, that'll be available on the specific tab you put it on. So back to our account we're setting up, we see that we can put customer notes on here. You can also set up a username and ask the customer what password they would like for the account portal access, or of course there's a link for them to go ahead and set that up later if they choose. From the location here, we can go ahead and put in our street address. We're going to put this in Suwanee, Wisconsin. This example here, and then we can either complete the setup, but we have a couple more things we're going to want to put in, so we're going to move on to the next page, which is going to show us a map. Now this is also going to show us an elevation profile for our map right here. Very handy, so you can pre-qualify customers and make sure you're giving them the right expectations so they're not getting too excited about service if it looks like there's some dirt in the way. For instance, if we were trying to shoot this way, it might be kind of rough, but we can actually turn the aerial view on and drill right down in here and run against the line here and say, you know what, these high points right here where we thought we might run into issues, it looks like that's a field. We're probably going to be okay. We're not seeing trees till we're further out. The other really cool thing about this is from this view right here, it's going to put you where the mapping system thinks you are, but that's not really where your house is. If they say they want to be on this back barn here, you can actually drag and drop that piece right there and reset the location. And from there you can move it around and see which tower you want to try to go off to hit that location, which has the best line of sight. That's probably not going to be a very good one. That first one probably was best, but it gives you the options to look all the way around. From there we can go and add a service. We can choose a monthly internet service here. We're going to choose this package and add it right to the account. Then we're going to go to the billing tab and we're going to set a tax zone if applicable. I'll set that right in there, and then leave everything else alone and create that account. We're now taken to the account page where we see it immediately put the account in a lead status as they're not active yet. We can see all the information here on the left, included the updated latitude and longitude for where we dragged and dropped that pin. Any contacts on the account, you can add additional ones if there's multiple people that should be on there, especially handy for a commercial location where, while another person might want to receive any notifications or updates on service issues or scheduled maintenance or things of that nature. You can see right here, if this was a live account, we'd be able to see minute by minute usage, current month per date, and the prior 12 months for what's happened on that account. Very, very handy for any troubleshooting that you might need to do right off the bat. We're going to see anything relevant to their billing situation here, as well as their monthly service on the right. Obviously, we don't have any equipment, tickets, or installs set up yet. We do allow for customized contracting, both on length of time or if you want to put a terms of use in here. This is really neat. We give you a free form. You can fill out what you want. And from there, the customer has to digitally sign it before they're actually allowed on their service. There's also an option to put in notes here. This is a great place to put in anything that's life of the account. So maybe there's a door code, maybe there's something relevant. If you do copyright violations and keep track of them, this would be a great place for that too. So now we're going to actually schedule that customer by going right down here to install service calls and hit the add button. This is going to bring up a create job box, and from here we can see there's a couple different types we can choose from. Most of our customers really only use the install or service types, but each of those are going to bring up different options underneath in the templates. Now these templates are really important to create a truly efficient Powercode system. They do a number of different things. I would suggest even having more than these examples here when you build out your own Powercode version. So basically right off the bat, this is going to be the length of time you allow for each job, which is very, very relevant, as well as a few other things on the back end we'll take a look at in just a second. So if we go to install, we'll see there a different number. And again, even here I build out even more. Maybe you have advanced, with a cable run, maybe you have a point-to-point type situation, but you really want to get these as granular as possible. In this example, we're only going to do an install. You do have the option to throw in a manual time override, but suggest against it as it kind of ruins some of your metrics on the back end. These are any notes that are going to be relevant to your installer. So in this case, we're going to say there was line of sight to that tower there, Swanee Tony Tower, and we're going to say quoted $125 for that install, and we're going to say call ahead. When we create that job, it's going to take us right over here to the schedule live view. Now from right here we can see this is what today's schedule looks like. Generally speaking, most of the time we have install managers or dispatchers, which will come in first thing in the morning and just throw an eye on this schedule and see if it looks like it's supposed to. Looks like Paul has a lot of space in his afternoon. We could put it here. But boy, one of the things that sticks out is John's schedule really isn't very convenient here. We can see that if we go over to his name and see his drive direction, he starts way up here, comes all the way down, and then back up this way. You know, boy, it doesn't really make sense to do that. We could probably even just, flip this around and make this his first stop of the day. And you'll notice as we start moving these pieces around, that translucent area in front changes. Well, that represents the drive time between each job. Or in this scenario, it's the drive time between the office, which is what's listed right here, or if they dispatch from different locations, you can set that differently to each one of their individual locations. Well, now do you see how much more time we just freed up here by switching those around? And now he can start his day right on the bottom and work his way all the way up. Very, very handy feature there. So in addition to drive time, we can see the amount of time we have scheduled for each job. This is a 90-minute job, 45-minute job, 30-minute job. And then the car is going to be the drive time between each. And then again, we can see any notes here, need to realign, we have an equipment pickup, anything relevant to what's happening with that install. If we want to choose a different day, we can go down here and we could see if there were any other installs on there. This is the amount of time we have schedulable for each day. Again, if there are more jobs out here, you'd see a different variance of time, so you can balance your schedule if you'd prefer. We're going to go ahead and put this job on our administrator account though, so we can jump into it and we'll see what it would look like for an installer here in just a moment. We're going to hit save there. Before we navigate away from this menu, it's also important to see that we do have a standby list here. This is where all rescheduled jobs go, or there's a lot of times where you might have a job that the customer doesn't need to be home for. Maybe it's a realign, maybe it's a radio swap, and you don't actually need to go inside, or maybe their service just isn't great, but you don't quite want to get them on the schedule yet. You can still build jobs out without scheduling them, and they live in the standby here, and you can see you can actually sort by length. In this case, we only have 2 in that same area, or by city. They're both in the same city, but you kind of get the idea that depending on what jobs you have in here, if your installer gets out in the field, finds out that the customer no-showed, I now have an hour to kill, they can jump right into the standby area and start plucking jobs off and getting them done. So now we're going to take a look at what it would look like for an installer once they go out in the field. We assume that all of your installers have either a smartphone or a tablet they work with. So we can go right up here into the installer mobile view. And we're going to go ahead and shrink this in so it looks a little bit more like a tablet here. There we go. So typically they would have any of their jobs scheduled for the day right here in front of them. There would be drive directions between each, and you can click right on here and see what that looks like. So here's that job we created. We put a service on there, but no equipment's been added yet. Not a big deal. The installer can do that in due time. This is hot linkable here, so they can pop open whatever GPS software they use to navigate out to the site. And then we see here we have any other jobs scheduled for us. There's none, but there's this handy check-in button. Now this check-in button does a number of things. It's designed for when you first get on site to hit this button here, hit check-in. It will start the clock running, show that it's now checked in. First thing this will do is actually put a little stopwatch back on that schedule live view. So that way anyone back in the office or anyone with access to Powercode knows that someone's checked into their job. It also timestamps when that check-in is, and there's a report that can be ran against when we think they should be there versus when they actually got there, again, because we're keeping track of drive times. So you can keep track of deviations between when people actually get there. It also will run for the length of the job, and then once they hit open the completion form, that'll stop that clock. Well, again, that does 2 really handy things to be keeping track of how long your teams are out in the field. First thing it does is it eliminates the whole subjective management portion. It's really difficult to go up to one of your guys and say, hey, Bob, it looks like you're really not doing as well as the rest of the team. It feels like you're not working as hard. Well, that's a hard conversation to have. Where in this case, you can actually go up and say, hey, we've been doing this for 2-3 months and we're checking in and checking out. And Bob, the other guys are averaging about 1 hour and 5 minutes on their basic install, and you're averaging 1 hour and a half. Is there some additional tools we can get you? Do you need some more training? Or, let's talk about why that is. And again, make it much more subjective and put the ball back in their court. The other thing this does is, as I mentioned, you set up your templates based on the type of job itself. You're able to keep track of whether you're scheduling your days properly. So for instance, if you have recable and you're giving your team 1 hour for it, and after about a month, you're seeing 2 months, boy, pretty much all of our teams across the board, it's taken them 1 hour and a half. That would really explain why if they have a handful of recables on their schedule, they're working overtime that day. Or conversely, maybe you have 1 hour and a half to do a basic install and everyone gets it done in 1 hour and 5 minutes. You know that you've got a bunch of fat at the end of the day that you're just wasting, where if you shorten that down, you'd be able to make sure your guys were more efficient with their scheduling. The other thing those templates do is once we go to open completion form, it brings up this complete job template. These are free forms that you guys are able to put in whatever you want here, and you can make it mandatory to close out the job or not. This is extremely convenient to make sure that you're keeping track of what you've been doing over time. If you have your access point, signal strength, wide open speed test, and CCQs there, you can go back 6, 7, 8 months, a year, 2 years, and say, boy, we used to only install at an egg 68, and then we kind of really slipped. Was that intentional, or did it just kind of happen that way? In my mind, more importantly, is you can now upload pictures directly from your smartphone or tablet to the account. A great example is a number of our customers have metrics around their installers, where one of them being number of revisits within 90 days, which really should be none. There really shouldn't be any reason that someone has to go back out to a job within 3 months of installing unless there was something wrong. But once this button showed up where the technicians are able to take pictures of the installs, our customers told us that number really dropped for a lot of them, because instead of having to hop in their trucks and go out and take a look at what that install looked like, with just a couple clicks, they could see the radio mounting location, they could see the service loop, they could see the actual place it was installed on the house, and anything with that install, as well as the line of sight from behind that radio to the tower itself. Then you're eliminating that issue where you install in the wintertime and all of a sudden April rolls around and you're getting slow speed calls, and sure enough you pull open that picture and go, ah man buddy, you are installing right through a maple tree, and now that's probably gone to leaf, which is why they have no service. Again, any of these features here, you can decide what's mandatory or not and what type of data field you're looking for, and they are done by specific templates. So an advanced install might have more, a commercial install might have different ones here, different actual service calls, of course, are going to have different things you're looking for. That's all up to you. Once that's all put in here, you hit submit and you're done and done. So that is it for our how to build an account and how to schedule a job training video. Of course, there's many more in the series. We look forward to you guys getting up and going with Powercode.